0707 a 389 seafarer. I'm 10 years old and today we're going to talk about my favorite airline in the world that is called Dominicana De Aviación. Now Dominicana De Aviación was created in the year 1944 during World War II in order to aim at the large Dominican citizens traveling to places like the United States, Puerto Rico, and Spain. In the beginning of the airline, it had operated a fleet of Douglas C-47s and DC-6s. During the 1950s, the airline had launched a domestic route network to places like Puerto Plata, La Romana, and San Diego de los Caballeros via the Curtiss C-46 Commandos and aviation traders cargo planes like the AT-98 and so on. And in the year 1960, the airline was operating non-stop international flights between Santo Domingo to places like Miami and San Juan. And later in the 1960s, this route, had to cut that part, I didn't know about it. Then during the 1970s, the route network had expanded even further with more destinations in the Caribbean and in the Americas. And in the 1980s, the airline had to operate the Queen of the Skies, also known as the 747, to European destinations like Milan and Frankfurt. And at the end of the 1980s decade, Dominicana De Aviación's economic situation worsened, and in order to reduce those costs, they operated wet lease planes like the Boeing 727 and the Airbus A300. And during the 1990s, you know what happened? The situation worsened, and lastly, in 1995, the Dominican government planned to shut down the airline. While it was planned as a temporary shutdown in order to get reorganized, the airline never flew again. And at the time, the airline had operated a fleet of Airbus A300B4s, ATL-98s, Boeing 707-320s, Boeing 707-320 convertibles, Boeing 727-100 and the 20 series, Boeing 737-400, Boeing 757-200, Lockheed L-188C Electra, McDonnell Douglas DC-9 and DC-10. Now the airline had traveled to places like Aruba, Canada, Brazil, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Germany, France, Haiti, Italy, United States of America, United Kingdom, Puerto Rico, and lastly Spain. That's all for today's presentation. I hope you learned something new today, and stay tuned for the next presentation about